Right, and our normal tradition, it's 1 minute after the hour, so let's call this meeting to order. Joyce, was there proof of notice?
Yes, the notice was posted in all the message boards and was also sent via email to all the owners.
Thank you. Let's do a board roll call. All those present, say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Suvan, aye. We have a board quorum. The first is the approval of the minutes from our February 6th board meeting. They were sent out. Were there any additions or corrections from the board? If not, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes, please. Dana?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, aye.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Stuven, aye. The minutes are approved. Let's start then with our reports. I want to just give you a brief summary of our hurricane preparation that we've done for 2025. I know some of you have heard this, but I know that we also have some new owners and you may not have attended in the past. So the short of it is this BBC has never been so well prepared for a hurricane as we are now. In brief, we have improved courtyard drainage. We added several additional drains throughout the courtyard. They're all tapped into the major stormwater drainage system. We added nearly 600 running feet of 42-inch high engineered seawall with riprap on the west side of that wall, stretching along the entire west end of the property. And we have in progress, it's been approved and engineering, et cetera, for a return of 30 feet on the eastern, going east, but on the north end of the property. So in combination, 630 approximate square feet, running feet of seawall that should prevent almost all hurricanes that would come onto our property. We've added submarine doors to all our electrical and elevator rooms. These were the key component rooms that were damaged severely during Hurricane Ian, and now they're basically watertight, nearly waterproof. We added shutters to all of our common room and office doors and our maintenance room door, which of course houses our main water supply system and some of the equipment for our alarm system, et cetera. And we have installed channels so that Guido and team could quickly put in 35-inch floodgates between the doors and the shutters, which will add some additional security for those potential leak points. Because in a hurricane, the last two hurricanes, Milton, et cetera, we had some leaking through the doors, and so that should help with that. We're also going to be putting and we're preparing for some marine plywood to be used in the breezeways. We'll close off the breezeways completely if we're at a severe hurricane notification. And in addition, we'll have those floodgates that'll be in front of the elevators. We have elevated some critical elements, such as the pool heaters. The entry gate controllers will be elevated on concrete pillars. The electrical panels we'll be installing some sump pumps in our control rooms. We also have developed a strategic phased hurricane plan that has already begun in June and is staging shutting down parts of the community so that we don't have to do all of it at the last minute. So in short, the BBC has never been so well prepared for hurricane. I hope you're happy with that. Any ideas that you might have, please forward them to myself and or other board members, and we'll add to it as time goes on. And we obviously will learn, hopefully not have to learn too much this year, but we'll learn as time goes on. I wanted to bring you up to date on a couple of other things. One is landscaping and staging. The plans for the hardscape of the barbecue area north will begin approximately mid-July after the fencing is in place. So what we've so what we're doing is as I mentioned, the seawall will continue from the west east for about 30 feet, but then there will be fencing from there all the way to what we previously referred to as the fishing pier. And that will give us a security along that whole northern section of our property. There will be gates there at various strategic locations. But as soon as we get that installed, then we'll put in the barbecue area right there by the tennis court, similar to what it was before. And we're anticipating they'll put in that fencing about mid-July is what they've told me. Now, Adam told me yesterday that the concrete restoration in the A building is complete, so that the north courtyard patio and the sidewalks that attach that patio can be begun within the next few weeks. I talked to Dixie with Love's Landscape, and she affirmed that she would get started on it during July. And then, of course, the additional landscaping in that north and west corner of our courtyard can be completed. That's the landscaping update. I want you to also know that the board is aware of the latest changes in the Florida statutes for condominiums that were approved by the governor just days ago. And it provides for the boards it requires boards to provide much more information for the owners. But I'm proud to say that all along during my term as president, we've been providing those contracts. You have been made aware of those at every board meeting. We've affirmed them if they've had to be done prior to the board meeting. And then, of course, any contract during the board meeting you've been made aware of. But we will, with the help of Joyce and Anne Marie, we will post some of those documents in addition to that. And then we'll advise the owners when that is made available. There was an owner question that I'm going to answer, and that is, what is the status of the structural integrity report, the milestone structural report, and the financial reserve study report? Now, these have all been contracted for. Socotech is doing the structural integrity report and the milestone structural report. And we have a signed contract with them to do that, but they logically want to do that when our concrete restoration is done. And then they'll be able to say that we have completed, for the foreseeable future, any concrete restoration needs to be done for our building. Milestone, interestingly, is the name of the company, along with Mosley Homes. They're doing our financial reserve study. They've been contracted for that. They've been given a lot of information already, and they're happy to find out that pretty much the entire complex is being renovated and brought up to date, so that the amount that we're going to actually have to put into reserves will be substantially reduced over time. And they've assured me that this reserve study will be done in time for our annual budget planning, which begins in August. That's my update for you all. And now I'm going to turn it over to Adam, our Vice President.
Thank you, Harlan. Few updates. I'll start off with the big one. Uh, I think most of you know that, well, flood insurance has been paying us relatively generously and fairly, I should say. Wind has paid us nothing. To add insult to injury, when we first started with them, they denied our coverage, stating that we don't have enough damage, which is under $1 million. Subsequently, when we hired strategic claims, they put in some paperwork and they decided that our net recovery would be $200,000. That pushed us in the position of hiring an attorney, demanding an appraisal, and then going into mediation. Um, we had a 9-hour mediation, and largely, in part due to your treasurer's efforts, Steve put together a whole bunch of numbers and worked with the public adjuster to put them together. And I'm proud to tell you that after 9 hours, we are able to recover $5.5 million from wind. Of course, that's going to be subject to papering yet. No, nobody gives away money for free. We have to sign the releases, the underwriters have to approve and all that stuff. But I think that's probably the best recovery that has happened up and down the blocks, because as you know, wind specifically has 2 points that they always bring up. Number one, not our fault. It happened because of the surge. And number two, we're not paying this because it's pre-existing damages. So we should have, hopefully within about 30 days, a nice check for $5.5 million minus costs. So that's first part. Second part, concrete restoration. Harlan did mention correctly that building A concrete restorations are complete. Lanai cages are going in hopefully within the next 4 or 5 business days. Uh, Same is true on building E, with the exception of sloping and waterproofing. It took few owners a little bit longer to remove the rails from the hurricane shutters. Thus, building E will be ready within about 2 or 3 weeks with the installation shutters. Once that is done, I believe that completes the courtyard repairs, which pushes us into a conversation about railings and walkways. We previously have obtained quotes for railings and walkways. Few things have happened since then. Some railings have been replaced, and our walkways, we previously had, I believe, a gemstone system that we found a product that can go on top of it and integrate with it, which would give us additional layer of protection. However, due to the extensive repairs that we had, I suspect somewhere between 70 to 80% of the walkways already were stripped down to bare concrete. Therefore, not only we are not comfortable just doing the mixing and matching as it was ill-advised, but at the same time, the level of the thickness of waterproofing would be different. The old waterproofing had about 7 or 8 coats, and we would not be able to simply blend it into the new coating on concrete. Accordingly, we've been patient, but we're getting estimates to resolve both issues: an updated estimates for the railings, and then an estimate for both potential system, the gemstone and or the other system that requires 4 coats. The process of this, I know a lot of us, it's off season. A lot of us want to make sure that we don't get locked out of our units. The regular process of this goes as follows. First, the rails will be replaced. The section that they're replacing is a matter of closing it off for less than a day. In emergency situations or as needed, the crew can provide a safe access to the unit and put some barriers over there. Not a big deal. Once the rails are done, at that point, they come back and they do the edging, where all the walkways connect to the building, meaning vertically, and they also do epoxy seals around the new railings so that the water doesn't go into the core drilling, causing rust. Once that is done, it will be time to do the waterproofing system. Depending on which waterproofing system is recommended, and which one we go with, that process involves approximately 3 to 5 days, or maybe even 6 days to complete. It'll be either 4 layers or 7 layers. Just like with the basic concrete repair, we would do this in sections and give owners a heads up saying, hey, these 4 days, your floor is going to be closed off. This is most relevant, obviously, in front of the walking path, in front of your units, and access to the elevator. They could do one staircase at a time. They could do the storage areas in the back. That's not really affecting your access, but that's the part that it will go back and forth. We're hoping to get all the final information about the waterproofing system and the railings within the next 3 to 4 business days and go through it accordingly. Moving on to security, digital access, cameras, fencing, and so on. All this is being incorporated, and it will be incorporated also on the boat slip side. What I mean by that is BBC Condo Association is currently on checkpoint system. That system will allow you to have a unique code to enter common areas, obviously. By talking to the boat slips, we're going to honor the agreement between both associations, and the boat slips decided that the keypad system going to the octagon, which is now our social pier, and obviously is available per agreement to the Bonita Beach Club Association, will also be on the checkpoint system. There'll be no special keys. You won't have to go to Joyce's office. In short, if you use your code to get into the game room, you will have the same option to get into the social pier. Checkpoint per se, my small update for you with this is that Checkpoint has sent out an email blast, I believe last week or a couple of days ago. With that, they have already 200, I think, entries registered, and we're going to start using the new system starting July 1st. All that means for you as the owner is that instead of using the generic code that we have been using, if you want to enter the pool area, or if you want to enter the social room, game room, whatever you want to enter, you will use the code that has been emailed to you. Okay. If you have not received this, maybe ping us. We can send you some instructions how to obtain the account information and create your logins for the front gate.
I
The
don't
caveat-
believe that email notice of everyone's assigned code has been sent yet, Adam.
Right. I'll double check with Checkpoint. The long and short of it is that you have your codes, which you will get no matter what you do. You will have them. Those codes will work on all the common areas starting July 1st. The registration online really is important for when you want to give temporary access to one of your guests or tenants or somebody for the front gate. As you know, the front gate is not yet put together. That's coming up, obviously. And the virtual guard that's going to be assigned over there where the owners and everybody else can present a QR code, that's what the profile is going to be required to. So I will follow up. I'll follow up with Checkpoint and make sure that everybody gets the information that they need. But overall, it will work even if you don't register online. But I'll make a note to follow up on that. Next, I have status of the seawall walkover plans. This has been a thorn in our side, incorporating everything that we need to do with access, with the engineering report, with the LDO, with Bonita Springs. The short answer is it's not a complicated structure to build. However, we don't have the final plans that are submitted to the LDO department and the Bonita Springs. We're hoping to have that in the next week, possibly 10 days, depending how fast of a turnaround our engineering team has. There has been some questions about Court Co-Lien. resulting in deficient work on the pickleball court and the tennis court. Few things about that. Number one, the lien is defective, legally speaking. However, I understand that if closings occur, most title companies bring it up. We have closed probably half a dozen units with this. It is not a problem to close with this lien. It's for about $18,000. The only thing that happens is that the title company requests an affidavit of sufficient funds. We have signed these documents for different title companies, and there's never a problem moving forward. The other thing that's happening is that the board believes that Cordco has not performed pursuant to the contract. Specifically, those courts in large are delaminating. Florida statute has a section that an owner can send to the contractor, giving them 75 days to fix these repairs. We have done so, I think, last week. So we have to wait it out a little bit. We demanded that they fix the courts, they honor their agreement for the warranty that they gave us, which is 2 years, and remove the lien. We will give an update once we hear something back. The last part that I have is the grant of easement between the BBC and the BBC boat slips related to the February 10th, 2023 amendment. I believe that easement was in place. However, you should know that there is not two parties to this agreement. There's three parties to this agreement. We have the Bonita Beach Club Condo Association, which acts as a landowner and has contractual privity with the state of Florida. And we have the boat slips, which they have a contract with Bonita Beach Club Condominium. The third party is the state of Florida. The state of Florida has requested some additional language in the easement. I don't have the final version in front of me, and I don't know if it is the final version. Nonetheless, I understand that Bonita Beach Club Association would prefer not to have liability for anything to do with the easement and the lease of the boat slips. That can be obtained. However, it does involve the state of Florida changing the language in the easement that would satisfy this. At no time will Bonita Beach Club Association, the condo association, lose any rights to land, lose any privileges, lose any lands. And once the documents are finalized, I believe the same thing will happen is they'll be submitted to the board and the board can review them accordingly. But as of now, the previous non-exclusive easement that was presented, I don't believe the state of Florida accepted it. So we're working on amending it. And that's my report.
Adam, thank you. Thank you. I want to accent something here. Adam shared the results of this huge financial win that we had with the wind insurance claim. I don't know if you caught it, but $5 million. So he kind of glossed over it, but it's huge, and it will have, we will discuss the implications later in this meeting and what that does for some of the things that we want to do yet and or talk about. But I want to make sure that we all understand that Adam and Steve spent countless hours preparing and participating in this mediation. Steve was previously deposed on the severity of damages. He spent an entire day in front of lawyers talking about what the damages were, because remember, he was the first one on site after Hurricane Ian. Adam additionally prepared by studying the ins and outs of legal mediation. Mediation is not his expert field. He's a lawyer, but he is not a mediator. So he took time out of his life to study the ins and outs of legal mediation so that both of these guys could be prepared on our behalf. So today I want to, and we should all honor them in whatever way we choose as our superheroes of the day. And I share my humble appreciation for all they've done to win this settlement. It is huge.
Thanks for the kind words, Harlan.
Thanks,
You're
Harlan.
welcome. Steve, let's move on to your treasurer report.
Okay, I've got several things here. I'll try and gallop through them as quickly as possible. One quick note on that mediation session, which I think is interesting, is that a lot of people. There was probably 10 or 12 people. As Adam said, we were there 9 or 10 hours on a Zoom call and a whole prep day before. But the state of those negotiations was that we started at, basically almost 15 million and they started at 500,000. So we went 24 rounds. I've got a spreadsheet where we're doing all these calculations of, max, average of the averages. We started bracketing our offers. We had a really good attorney. Adam did a great job. This is not my skill set, but it was a group effort and we had the right people. When we hired Strategic Claims to be our public adjuster, I think that was a good decision in retrospect. So they helped guide us through to this process. And quite frankly, here we are 2 years and almost 3/4 of another year. And it looks like we're finally going to get something out of wind. So we're looking forward to that. In terms of sources and uses, what we have pending, obviously, we would like to see that paid within the next 30 days. And again, it's a tentative agreement. We think we're pretty close. We've got a big chunk of money for renewal of our contract coming in from Hotwire. We've anticipated that for a while. We're getting close. That's a 6-figure cash inflow that'll help. We've got a grant coming in from the building of the wall out front. That was Adam and Harlan's effort. And I think we're going to get relieved of about $100,000 of the cost of that front wall that will not only protect the property, but we got a grant to do so. And I think we're in the process on that. Later today, in terms of other sources for cash, because obviously you're looking at a huge renovation here, is the potential sale of 126. Obviously, we have also additional supplemental claims with flood. So we've already been through basically 2 rounds of supplements. We got paid on Ian. We got paid on the other 2 hurricanes, Milton and Helene. We got paid on those from flood. Flood's paid fantastically, and Adam and I have worked that process and managed it. In fact, we're still working on a portion of the work that you're seeing CPR do. And I really think it's important to note that, in addition to the fact that we've probably done the largest renovation all the way up and down Hickory, we've only assessed between 25 and 30% of what our neighbors have. So we're doing a much larger renovation, a much better renovation in my mind in terms of the scope of what we're doing. And we've done so economically, and this board to a person has pulled together to try and pull that off. So I'm really pleased with the way everybody's come together. Next thing is, not as positive a note as that is that as everybody has seen, we've now stopped accepting payments on our website. That was just challenging from our accountant's perspective to try and remedy that. And then the vendor that was doing that, they were charging holdback and a lot of fees. So we have gone to Davis's custom solution that they've been offering to all of their clients. And please note this, that everybody is now being invoiced on the invoice that you receive quarterly or as they occur, as in the case of the special assessment. You're now getting that, and it's a QuickBooks link. Okay, so we're no longer accepting payments on our website. It's got to be through the QuickBooks link. So please follow that. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Davis. And I think the instructions are fairly clear. Note this: if you've made payments on QuickBooks, you have kind of 2 ways you can do it. You can either store back your information by getting a login at QuickBooks, which is what we've done. We used to pay our home service there. In fact, we still do. So we have a login and it stores all of our payment information. If you don't like storing your payment information, which I would understand, then every quarter or every payment that is due, if you're paying for a closet or a special assessment, you'll have to enter your banking information. But again, the important takeaway here is everything is going to happen with your invoice that you get from Davis via email, and all those payments are going to cycle through QuickBooks. Those then feed directly into our books, and we're going to pay a lot less in terms of hours at Davis to render your invoices and get those appropriately accurate. However, right now, this is the less positive piece. We've got about 300,000 in past due accounts receivable. I need everybody to pay, right? We got huge amounts of cash going out. I've managed the cash flow as best I can, but we're owed about 300 and some $1,000. We've got some people that are still in a situation with doors and windows. We've got some people that haven't paid the special assessment. Some people are a little behind on their quarterlies. Okay. We really are going to adhere to state law, and we really felt like we didn't have a choice. And it's not necessarily going to be a great move. We've offered a lot of grace through this whole, ever since Hurricane Ian, but effective immediately, when we generate a letter that's going to come out, if you have a past due balance, you're going to get an email and a letter within the next probably week. You're going to get a 30-day grace period to get your balances paid, no matter what they are. But we are going to start assessing either penalties or accrued interest, because we can't expect our neighbors to cash flow our past due. Okay. So that $300,000 really needs to come in. And I would encourage everybody, if you've got a past due balance, please settle it up. We don't want to charge interest. We don't want to charge penalties, but we're really financially in a situation where we have no choice. And, if those of you will remember FSR had very high penalties and very high interest that they accrued to that. And to my recollection, I don't know that we collected on any of that. They collected that. So this goes and accrues to the benefit of your neighbors at BBC, but we're going to start getting those paid, and we need to get them paid right away. So you'll get an invoice coming up. Let me see here. What else have we got on the treasurer's report? Somebody asked a question, past due. Okay, elevators. We're finally at the end of an incredibly long journey in getting the elevators finished. The last two, one in A and one in E. A is finished, but is not yet ready for turnover because we have to do the tile in it. And E is nearly finished. My understanding, after talking to Alan Dennison, and we've raised hell with them, and frankly, it just hasn't gone a lot faster. It's way longer than what it should have been. But the bottom line is E elevator will probably be finished within the next 2.5 to 3 weeks. And then our vendor who does all the tile didn't want to come out and do a 6-foot elevator and then another one on another date. So they're going to finish up the flooring, the tile flooring in both of those. And then when it's over, and I'd say that's probably within a 3.5 week time frame, then we're going to have general elevator come out, and we are going to do a walkthrough. So I'm reluctant to do this, but if you have anything that you want to complain about elevators, please send me an email and say, hey, my elevator takes forever. I keep getting stuck in it. We've raised hell with them. And it's going to be reflected in our final invoicing with them. But at the end of the day, we're going to do what's known as an elevator punch list walkthrough. I'm hoping to have this within the next month and change. And we're going to get Alan Dennison out here. We're going to ride up and down. We're going to check every floor, every elevator. If you have issues with your elevator, send me an email. We have financial fiscal year 2023 financial audit. The work was started because it was kind of crazy. Hurricane Ian happened September 28th of 2022. Unfortunately, that left us 2 days in our fiscal year, because we're on a 9/30 ending fiscal year. 2 days of Hurricane Ian were included in our fiscal year of 2022, and that dragged the 2022 year-end audit out forever. And once you drag out the 2022, it drug out the 2023. The 2023 is finished. I think we've gotten a draft of it. We have to pay the invoices, but I believe we're finished, and we'll be posting that to the website. And obviously, once we finish that, we'll move on to the next one. And then another owner question was timeline for budgeting sessions for fiscal year 2026. That'll begin sometime in August. And we'll punch out our budget the same way I've done since July of 2022. We'll get that wrapped up. We do it in spreadsheets. We'll post it. I'm telling you, this is going to be a really interesting challenge, because our insurance costs have skyrocketed. Our flood insurance hasn't been as bad, but please remember, and I want everybody to really listen to the numbers, and I know it's easy to sort of, fall asleep on stuff like this, but the bottom line is our aggregate insurance cost when I first started as treasurer in July was approximately 400,000, and that 400,000 has now grown to $1.2 million. Okay. So that's an $800,000 increase, and that's a $4,000 per unit increase in operating budget. Okay. We can't continue to buffer that. We've been able to do that because we had savings, because we didn't have all the services going, but you can certainly anticipate an increase. I wish we didn't have to announce that, but bottom line is when you effectively triple your insurance cost, rates have to go up. We're doing everything we can to get to a lesser expensive insurance cost. But as you know, when they start to ratchet up, they continue to ratchet up. And even if we get to Citizens, which we got turned down by Citizens this year because we were not in a state of completion, I think we won't have any problem getting there. That is not going to be a windfall where we go back to 400,000 or 500,000. Once they get there, they never, it's kind of like the federal government with a budget. It never really seems to go back much. We'll do everything we can to optimize, but at the end of the day, that's going to be there. And remember that in terms of the $18,000 that we've special assessed to rebuild this place so far, remember that almost $4 million is being spent in just what custom paint and restoration's doing. It's a huge part of our budget. If you look at the big budget items, 4 million there and 2 million for elevators alone, that's $6 million of just putting this place back together. Those costs were all before, really, a majority of those costs were incurred before Hurricane Ian hit. That's a lot of repairs. And as you've seen, and if you've been here, you can see there's a massive amount of work being done. There's so much rebar and spalling in the stucco that had to be replaced, and that's the cost of doing business. So that's my final. I would anticipate a significant increase. We haven't done that. I did a very, very small increase in the 3 years that I've been treasurer, but we're going to have to balance our budget. We're statutorily required to, and that may very well be an increase. So I think that's basically it. Harlan, back to you.
Thank you, Steve. Dana, do you have any specific report?
No, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. I asked you to take on do a little bit of background work on the stacks, the vertical the sewer stacks in our property. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what you learned from that? I know I didn't ask you to prepare anything, so
Nope.
you're gonna
No,
have
that's
to do
fine.
it off the top of your head, but would you just share what you've learned basically? That's
So what I did was I talked to a guy who's the person that repairs most of our stacks, and he gave me a stick with photos on it for each unit. Generally, when he does a repair, he will have the unit number in the photo, or if it's outside in the garage, he'll show the unit number of the stack from the garage perspective. So I went through that stick or the stick of photos, and it was from, I believe, January of maybe 22 through January of 25. And I ended up renaming the photos because each photo was not actually named, and I named it to the unit number or the stack number. And then I created an Excel list, and I gave those to Anne Marie, and I believe she's put something either on the website or trying to create a database so that that data doesn't get lost. I believe we lost a lot of data with Hurricane Ian on what had been repaired previously. And so I will update that again. I had talked to Guy before I left for the season, and I will do another update in the fall with data from February of 25 to present, because I know he's continuing to work. So we'll continue to add to that database. And like I said, I do have an Excel sheet that summarizes it.
yeah. And thank you, Dana. It was a big project, and it will help us understand where our liabilities are in terms of leak potential in the complex. And kudos to the previous board for pushing along everyone in the C building to have their laterals repaired so that we wouldn't have to worry about as many leaks in the C building. But in the other buildings, what you found, and I looked at the spreadsheet just a few days ago, Dana, is, in some of the stacks, almost all of the people have done their repairs of their laterals. And they're spotty. There's one here, one there, and so on. So I think it may be something that the next board takes on to look at how we can kind of proactively address some of those potential leak areas and have owners repair what is now probably 20, 30, 40 years old, repair it before it becomes a liability for people below them. So it's a big project, and I appreciate you starting that off, and I hope that the next board takes it on seriously to
Yeah,
address
we
it.
may want to ask the owners if they did the repair themselves instead of when they did a remodel or whatever, that if they have that information, that they could either send it to me and we can add it to the database.
Yes, yes. I'm sure that what you've done is not complete in that there were things done before the information that you received, but it's a great start. Thank you. And I also want to give a shout out to Dana. We're going to be talking in a bit about the parking lot, and she has done a lot of the background work on that, but we'll get to that in just a bit. So Brad, you're up next. Brad? Okay,
Okay, I'm here.
okay.
I'll give an update on the pool house, where we're at now and where we're going. My understanding is we have all of the permits that are necessary to move forward. Today, we should vote to approve the contract with Carbon 6. Their bid pricing summary has changed slightly in that general conditions has gone down. Cable railing went down, shower door allowances went up, and the net of that is pretty close to the 10,000 that we're going to need for the increase in electrical. So our contract started out at 930,000 with the efforts by Ron Behrens and Roger. The number, especially Ron Behrens, has done a tremendous amount of work on working with Carbon 6. It went from 930 to 850, which is our current contract. And we believe there may be a little bit of wiggle room in that, in the fact that we are removing some counters and fencing on would be the north and south sides of the pool house. Ron will be heading down to Florida shortly. He has a meeting on July 1st to walk the project with Carbon 6, outline what they need to do before they can start moving. And the only hurdle that we have left is for the lawyers to finalize the contract, and then they'll be ready to move forward. And my understanding with Ron is that Carbon 6 is ready to go, and they want to get going on the project as soon as they can. So we expect them to start relatively quickly once the contracts are signed. I think those contracts have moved back and forth a couple of times already. So there's not a whole lot left to finalize that contract and then start the construction process.
Brad, thank you. Do you want to give a little bit of update on, where we went with PBS, and then you guys met with you and Ron met?
Oh yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to do that or when we
Yeah.
get to the
You
vote.
know what? That's fine.
It's up to you. I can do it now if you want.
Why don't you do it now, as long as we're in that?
Okay. So we started out getting bids from PBS and also Tom Kelly. Kelly's numbers were around 450, but these initial bids were done with really just a basic drawing, no ideas of the specs, no ideas of what we wanted, and they were really incomplete. We did get a very competitive bid from, what was their name? The gentleman that did the West Bay beach house. And I believe they were in the $1.2 million range, somewhere in there. And Ron did find Carbon 6, who's working next door to us, and their bid, and they've been very good about adjusting it and looking at all of the things that we wanted, and working with the well-defined specs that Ron has on the project. So The 850 is a pretty solid number. We're pretty confident that that's what's going to be built at. And Tom Kelly didn't get the project, not because he doesn't do good work, but we felt that Carbon 6 is much more geared to handle this. And Tom Kelly's been doing the bathrooms on the project. He did the remodel on Unit 126, and he's done a great job. In fact, he even remodeled my condo. So Tom Kelly's a great contractor. It didn't have anything to do with it's more of the size of Carbon 6 and them being able to complete the pool house in the timeline that we have. And we'd like to have it done before the first of the year.
Thanks, Brad. We'll perhaps have a little more conversation about that later on, but thank you for that update, just to kind of get us our minds framed around that. Joyce, do you have a report for us?
Well, this is my first meeting with you, my first board meeting, and I just have a little bit of some of the things that we've been working on. First, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be part of your team here. Everyone has been so welcoming to me and the ladies in the front desk. We've completed our first quarter here now. And we've made some adjustments and some changes. As many of you know, we were offering to have the office available for our owners on the weekends. We monitored that, and this time of the year, we've elected to cut it back to just Saturday, but we will continue to stay open on Saturday. And like I said, everyone has been so welcoming and kind to us. Vito and I have are still forming a great team. We have been diligently working on our hurricane preparation plan along with the board, and getting some of those strategic things completed in a certain time frame so that we are prepared. And I am confident that if we have a storm this year, that we will be very, very prepared. And we continue to work on that and review it daily. And that is about really all I have right now. I am working diligently with Checkpoint to ensure that this transition for access to the common area rooms and the swimming pool and eventually the gate goes as smoothly as possible. I do have a very extensive background in access control from previous properties that I've worked at. So I'm very confident that we will be able to assist and guide our owners through that. But also at the same time, when you roll out a big plan, sometimes there may be a few little wrinkles or hiccups. But I mean, again, I'm very confident that we will overcome those very quickly, and everyone will really enjoy the new access control program. And
Well,
that's about all I have.
Thank you, Joyce. There was a question about the status of the common room bathrooms. This was an owner question.
The common room bathrooms was recently, So the people that had not been here for a while, the common room bathrooms those bathrooms are open, both the ADA and the regular bathroom. And the B is also completed. C was recently turned over to us this week, as early as this week. D is probably the next one that will be turned over to us. Tom Kelly is his subcontractors in there doing some of the plumbing work. And then the tile has gone in the bathrooms, and they're just really in the finishing stages because all of the rough plumbing and electrical has been completed. So I anticipate in my conversations with Tom Kelly that we should have those back all up and turned over within the next 3 weeks at the latest.
Thank you, Joyce. And I want to say that Joyce and her staff have always been positive. It's fabulous, Joyce. I mean, and look at that smile. She has a can-do attitude every time I talk to her over the phone or in person. And she's had a lot of experience, and that experience has brought a lot of innovative solutions and ideas to our complex. She's got connections, and she's been able to bring in contractors that we have never to my knowledge, used at the BBC. So I think we're on a great footing right now, and I think it may be the best administrative team that we've had in a long time. And so please, everyone, continue to welcome them, treat them with respect, and I think they'll stay with us for quite a while. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're going to have old business, and I want to, before Adam, I want to just say that I've removed the carbon-6 contract from this section and put it into new business. So for the owners there, when you're looking at your agenda, the last item had the carbon-6 contract. We will address that separately. But Adam, if you want to make a motion on the other items that are there.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion for the board to reaffirm previously approved contracts as stated below, items A through O, I believe, excluding the carbon-6 contract, prior to this board meeting. Do I have a second?
Steve Dalton, second.
And do I have a vote, please? All those in favor say aye.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Great, the motion carries. I want to point out the last one, which is really important as we're kind of moving forward here, and that is the Accurate Pavers. So Accurate Pavers will probably be the company that we would lean toward if we did put pavers in the parking lot. And you'll notice there that we approved a contract to install these front entry pavers. If you remember, we did a material alteration vote on that previously, and it passed. Now, it may seem a little bit illogical to put those in now when we still have work going on around the complex. But the city of Bonita Springs is requiring us to complete the entryway, including the pavers. So the timeline is not ours. It's dictated by them. But the other thing I want you to notice is when we told you that in the material alteration materials that we estimated it would be somewhere around 50,000, it turned out to be substantially less. Part of it, the reason is that this was spun off away from the PBS contract. With the blessing of Bart, we were able to negotiate a contract separately with Accurate Pavers, and with the help of Dana and some work that she had done talking about potential pavers for the entire parking lot, we were able to get a substantial reduction in the cost. So I just wanted you to understand that piece of it so that as we move forward. I think the next would be to move into new business. Adam, please.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion for the board to approve the recording of the memorandum of understanding regarding legal description. Do I have a second?
Brad Hanson, second.
Now, there was an owner question on this, Adam, and I think you're probably the most logical person to answer it.
Sure. If anybody researches our title abstract and the lots that we have put together to create Bonita Beach Club Association, there are many documents floating around. The issue that we ran into is that both our engineering team and the surveyor, for whatever reason, thought that our property line ended approximately, I think, 10 or 18 feet northbound of the cinder block wall that we have on the south side, the front gates. That's a huge chunk of land to give up and potentially negotiate with anybody else, if we can use that. So we asked the legal team to go through the title commitment that I provided them with and put together an opinion letter stating that our property line ends right around the wall over there, as indicated on the survey. This was an absolute necessity, as the city of Bonita Springs would not have granted us any permits in that area until the surveyor was convinced that our property line was actually by our wall. So the memorandum of understanding is simply a reference point that we're going to record on our straps for the common areas, so that in the future, if any board or professional or surveyor or anybody else needs to know the boundaries of our lot, they have a very easy time figuring out exactly what is it that we have possession of. So not much action is required. We're just going to record this so it's public record. All it does is just provides clarification.
Thanks, Adam. Does the board have any questions on this? Anybody on the board have a question? Does any of the ownership have a question? If not, then I'd like to ask for the vote on this. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Steuben, aye. The motion carries. Steve, you're up next.
Harlan, I'd like to make a motion for the BOD to submit to the owners a proposal for the sale of Unit 126 and separately the sale of undercover parking lot spots 24 and 25 and pursuant to our attorney, change the bylaws and declarations accordingly. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Let me give you a little bit of background. So we have obtained 3 market analyses with ranges for the value of 126 in the upper 500,000 range. So the plan is to offer 126 to owners on a closed bids and to sell to the highest bidder above whatever our proposed pricing starting point will be. Lacking a sale to owners, we will then engage a realtor and open it up to the public. Now, in addition, the BBC owns 2 undercover parking spots, one in the C building, spot number 24. It's immediately behind the office, and in the B building, spot number 25. As you remember, these spots have often been offered to the highest bidder for a lease for the year. Seems rather odd to maintain. I mean, we're not in the business of leasing out. So if we can convert those spots into dollars, we'll be able to use that money for other things. So the plan would be similar to offer 126 to owners on a closed bid and sell to the highest bidders. The proceeds of those sales will then be applied to the cost of the pool house, thereby selling the assets that we have that have little value to us as owners, although I could suppose we could debate that, but at least in the opinion of the board, the value is limited to us as owners, and then use that money to build something that will become the crown jewel of our property, that being the pool house. So that's kind of the background behind it. Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Harlan, I just wanted to speak very quickly in favor of this motion. I mean, number one, as a treasurer, $500,000 is really going to be helpful. Nobody wants to see the cost of the pool house being borne by them directly and writing checks for that. That's number one. Number two, we haven't rented 126 and I don't even know how long. Number one, it couldn't be rented. Number two, we have responsibility for maintenance, upkeep. As you said, we're not really in the business of renting. I don't know how you'd award that, so there's a lot of issues with it. And on top of that, if we sell 126, in addition to $500,000 or more dollars that we could raise to offset against cost of other projects, we also get $10,000 a year of quarterly assessments that we're not getting right now. So in addition to the 10,000 plus the $500,000 as the treasurer, it's a really good time to sell this asset. And the same way with the 2 underground parking. I mean, we don't need to be in the business of trying to rent or auction these assets.
Thank you, Steve. Anybody else from the board have a question or comment about this motion?
I do, Harlan. I practiced condo law and real estate law in Chicago for about 20 years. It is a rare occasion when an association wants to be in the business of being a landlord. So I don't really see any compelling reason to hold on to this. And to Steve's point, I think the money can be wisely used somewhere else with perpetual assessments coming in. So I'm sincerely in support of this. The other thing that we have going for us is that this is a brand new unit. It's much easier to sell something where, you have a crisp, paint and no scratches, nothing else. So I think that increases its value now opposed to renting it out, having it beat up, and then try to do the same at some other time.
Thank you, Adam. Any other board members have any questions or comments about this?
Hi,
Dana?
Harlan, Brad.
Yes, go.
Hey, I'm just curious why it would be a closed bid and why we wouldn't want to have it an open bid over a period of time. My reasoning would be that people would see what they're paying and they would have an option to increase it, and we would get the highest value without somebody just kind of guessing at it or trying to get a less than market bid or just barely over market bid.
Well, I guess there's no absolute way to do it, Brad, and certainly your points are well made. I thought the way we would approach it is we'd use the number that's determined by the realtor that Adam has obtained and what we believe is the best number to use at 599 starting. And so if you feel, so then by having closed bids, it may be that some owners would say, hey, I'd be willing to pay more than that. And if it's closed, then nobody really knows what somebody else is bidding. And we might be able to get the most amount of money for the association that way. The flip side of it is, of course, if we say we want 599 and the owners come in and they say, well, gosh, I don't want to pay that. I'd pay 550, and that's as high as it goes, as an example. Then I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to hear some other reaction from the other board members on that. I'm not fixated on how to do that.
Well, I like the idea of the 599, but you could start at 599 and go up by increments of 5,000 and have it open to people to see where the current bid is at it, and if anybody wants to bid at it. And if we feel strongly that that it's worth 599 on the open market, then we would go to the open market to see what it is. The other thing is if we started below, and they do this at auctions where you start out below the number. So let's say 550 would be a number that we would want to consider. We could start out at 550, but it would need board approval to be below the 599. And that's something that banks do in auctions where they're auctioning out property. They auction it, but then when they get the number, then that would require the bank to approve it. And in our case, it would require the board to approve a number below 599. So we might be willing to take 575 if it was open to everybody here and we knew it was going to an owner and we didn't have to pay realtor costs on the $600,000 and go through a sale.
Sure, you make good points. Anybody else on the board have any comments about that? Either ideas?
No, candidly, I like the idea if we can maximize the value here and you put a time frame to close out bidding and you run it on an auction format. I think more transparency is better than less transparency, and maximizing, if we decide to sell the asset and the membership approves, we should get every dollar that we can, even though it's coming from an owner. I think we should maximize it for the benefit of everybody else. I like the idea.
Okay, Dana?
I can agree with that, especially again, the 599, if we have to pay realtor costs on it, we wouldn't achieve 599. It'd be something less.
So today's motion is really just about putting the idea in front of the owners, not the process. So if the owners do approve the sale of 126 at that time, having now had a few weeks to think about this, we can come up with how we want to proceed with the sale of it. But good points made. Thank you, guys. Any questions or comments from the owners?
Hi, this is Anne Marie, 358E. I do think it's a good idea to have an open auction, and I think that you may find that there's some owners that want a bundle deal, like C126 with a parking lot or a parking spot. Yeah.
Okay, another good thought too. Okay, so let's vote on the motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brett Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Ron Steuben, aye. The motion carries. Dana, you're up next.
I'd like to motion the board to submit to the owners a proposal for the material alteration of the parking lot with concrete pavers and whatever selective changes our civil engineering and Metis Design may suggest.
I'll second.
Hey, Dana, do you want to give a little bit of background on some of the research? Maybe you want to leave numbers out of it, but you want to give a little background on what you've done so far? Because you've really been the leader on researching out for the parking lot.
Sure. So right now I have 3 quotes for pavers and 2 quotes for asphalt. And then Ron Behrens was generous enough to work with me when I was there and started the project. And so we've been thinking about different things in the parking lot for whether we use bump stops or whether we used a curb, and then we can paint the curb with the parking spot number. It might be aesthetically a little bit more appealing to have it kind of surrounding the center landscaping. And so I've been talking to Elizabeth from JR Engineering on whether that's possible and what the city would think. And so we've been moving down that process. We also looked at different types of pavers, but I can't even remember the name of the other paver. There was another, clay pavers, but that turned out to be almost double the cost of concrete. And so we dropped that. We thought it was just too expensive. Concrete will last a long time. Concrete pavers, easy to repair, easy aesthetically, more appealing. A lot of our neighbors have gone down that path. I had talked to quite a few of the other associations, Seascapes going down that path. And as you know, as you go down Hickory Boulevard, some of the other associations also have gone to pavers.
Thank you, Dana. And, in combination with this, the civil engineering people have told us that we need to make some changes in terms of our parking lot numbering system. Anne Marie, you want to just make a little bit of comment about that? Not too much detail, but.
Sure. We are working on the assignments, making sure that the layout of the parking spots, there's no change to the covered under cover parking spots, but we want to make sure that there are equal number of spots behind different buildings or more. And actually, we think that will be some adjustments, so we'll be able to move some people that are probably have an assigned spot further away from the entrance to their building. We'll be able to give them a better assigned spot, and those people will be, reached one-on-one for their approval to move spots.
So just to be clear, we're not anticipating reassigning people in mass.
No. I think we're probably talking about less than 12 people.
Yeah, and likely to their benefit more than anything else. But there has been some change in the way the flow occurs on our parking lot. And so the engineering team, in conjunction with the city, have said we have to make some changes that will affect some of the spaces. As well, Metis Design has made some recommendations that will improve the look and feel of the parking lot as well. So just wanted to bring those points up. With the wind insurance payout, and we most likely will be able to pay for virtually anything that the owners choose to do with no foreseeable need for a special assessment. So we're very, very pleased to be able to, we'll have that detail before you have to vote on this, but I really don't think that there's going to be a need for a special assessment to pay for whatever we choose to do in the parking lot. Now, that's my opinion at the moment, and we do have to do a lot of thinking and planning to make sure of that. But any other questions or comments from the board?
Harlan, if
go
I
ahead.
can chime in on real quick on Anne Marie's before I get to the pavers. Our parking lot, much like our front gate and our enclosures for the trash receptacles, none of them would qualify for the current building code or LDO with the city at bare minimum. All those areas had to be negotiated with the city down to our landscaping, native trees. As a way of example, the city thought that we should have well over 400 parking spots because a condominium this size that we built in 2025 would be required of that. So our engineering team and along with our architect have been working diligently with the city to make whatever changes we have to make to accommodate that. If that was enough, we also have to deal with the fire department, which will just flat out tell you, we don't want this kind of gate. We want this kind of radius, the end. Those terms are non-negotiable, and there's not a whole lot we can do about this. So Anne Marie and our team, they really did a great job just making these changes nominal and to the advantage of the people. So thank you, Anne Marie. Going back to the pavers, quick observation. This is, I would say, one of those projects that most people will love. It looks better. It will bring the values of the condos up. They produce less heat. These have been recommended by every single professional we have talked to, the realtors, engineers, GCs, architects. There's not a single person that we talked to with the license or even without that would say, oh no, asphalt is a much better choice. The water management is much better. Um, they're easier to maintain, like Dana said, and they're very easy to repair. Over time, they actually end up costing less than asphalt. So, um, this is something that I would encourage owners to kind of go through. We haven't had any um, indication that they're an issue during hurricanes, so I don't have a compelling reason to tell you, listen, you might want to think this through and consider asphalt. There's just no reason not to switch, in my opinion.
Thank you, Adam. Was there another board member that had a question or
Yeah,
comment?
I think it'd be aesthetically, I think it'd be a great, positive to the property overall. I mean, the work that we've done in the courtyard, if y'all haven't been down here, it's getting there. It looks fantastic. And I think this would bring the back side of the building up to the standard that the front side is going to be fantastic when it's finished. Dana, I've got two questions.
Sure.
Number one, is it completely the recommendation on the pavers, is it all the way into the covers and cover all that area? Is there any asphalt in this? And the second question is, how do you stripe? Do you not stripe and then just expect people to center on their number? I'm assuming you're not painting over new pavers or using an offset color. How do we do that?
Well, no, we're not going to paint. We would ask the winning contractor to cut in the striping needed for the parking, each parking spot, and also the traffic arrows. And there is no asphalt in the plan. So that's part of the bid is for them to cut it in. They will probably cut it in with a white paver, because even though we're going with this the grayish mix, charcoal black white mix, a black stripe may not be as easy to see in the evening, and so they would recommend white probably.
Thanks.
And one unique thing that came up, and you mentioned it a little bit ago, instead of these individual bumpers, concrete bumpers, the idea of a continuous curb in front would actually help probably with some water drainage and might even be cheaper. Dana, do you want to comment on that, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it'd be cheaper, but it definitely would, I think, seal in the pavers better. And so I think it's a better solution. We will still have bump stops in the underneath the buildings because of when you go underneath the building, they have that little bit cement walkway next to the building. So you still need a bump stop for under the building parking, but it would really be, the curbing would be around the center landscaping, and then we would put the numbers in there, and then you'll have the striping with the parking lot pavers.
Excellent. Was there any other question or comment from the board? Okay, question or comments from the owners?
Arlen, this is Larry Kloeb.
Yes, Larry.
How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you, Larry.
Um, and I understand you don't want to put out numbers at this point, but when you go to have a material alteration vote, you are going to provide the paver quote and the asphalt quote to the owners, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure on that. Thank you.
Yes, but also I hope by then we'll be able to say, not only this is what it's going to cost, but this is what it's not going to cost you. If you understand where I'm going with that line of thought. Anyway, but you'll know, you'll get the numbers. Yes. Any other
Thank you.
thank you. You're welcome. Any other questions or comments from the owners?
Harlan, this is Marla Russo. I just
Yes.
like to make a comment that if we're down here now all the time, and so when last year or after Hurricane Ian, when it hit so devastatingly around here, you'll notice that most of the places that had pavers still have pavers, which was a concern years ago.
Yes.
And Barefoot Beach, which put in pavers all through their property. After Ian, they had well over 300 sand trucks a day in and out of that property to renourish their beach. And their road is just fine. So if anyone's concerned about pavers not being substantial as opposed to asphalt, I suggest you take a ride through Barefoot Beach.
Yeah, thank you, Marla. And you and I were on the board when this topic came up before, and someone talked about that, possibility of pavers being literally, kind of peeled up with the hurricane, and that was not the case. In fact, as you pointed out, in fact, the asphalt up and down the Hickory Boulevard, either when the sidewalks or and some of the other driveways, it just turned to trash. And so another good compelling reason. Thank you, Marla. Any other?
Alan,
Yes,
this is Dave Russo. Sorry.
yes,
If by chance I could meet with who's ever laying out the parking lot for pavers, I'd like to give them my experience with the engineer that I hired to come out and look at our parking lot
yes.
and the relationship of that curb around the plantings in the center of the parking lot.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. I remember that now. And I'm sure I need to connect you with Dana because she's going to be the key person involved in this. But yes, Dave has some great contacts and did some preliminary work years ago when we put this in front of the owners. Other questions or comments from the board? I'm sorry, from the owners.
Yes, Harlan, this is Linda Lamb.
Yes, Linda.
Yes, I'm concerned about the curb around the parking lot because I park outside, which means I would have to step over the curb to get to the building. And that would
Yes.
be difficult. And also even when it's not turtle season, it is very dark behind a building, very, very dark. And I'm
Yes.
always concerned about parking on the other
Yes.
side and walking over.
Yes, of course. And that's a very valid concern. And that's why, in fact, the engineer and Metis Design have created a walk-through sidewalk, if you will, for people from the outside, so that instead of trying to pull your suitcase or walk over, the plants that were there, the curbs that were there, the stones that were there, all that crap, you'll have actually a dedicated sidewalk to walk straight into the breezeway and into the elevator. Any other questions or comments from owners? All right, then I'd like to take a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Lashinsky, aye.
Brad Hanson, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Harlan Steuben, aye. The motion passes. Brad, you're up next and last.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Carbon 6 Construction in the amount of $850,549 to replace the contract with TW Kelly Construction for the construction of the pool house pending legal review.
I'll second.
So I'd like to again point out that thanks to Ron Behrens, and I know Ron's got a bad cold, he can't talk, otherwise I'd ask him to actually jump in. Roger Crom, Brad was involved in all of this. Adam was involved, Steve. So many people have been involved in this to get this to this stage. And we now have a very excellent plan. I think that'll be aesthetically and functionally superior to anything you could have even imagined. So with the sale of 126 and potentially parking spots, and thanks to Adam and Steve and the wind insurance settlement, I hope and I don't think that there'll be any need for a special assessment for this project. So anyway, those are my comments. Any comments or questions from the board? We've had some previous comments about this, but anything else that you want to add?
Brad, are we already permitted at this point? And basically, if we get started on this, when do you think they're going to start swinging hammers and then potentially a finish date? I know you mentioned before the end of the year.
In talking with Ron, he's going to meet July 1 for the walk around, and Carbon 6 was ready to start a few weeks ago. So they're ready. They're chomping at the bit to get going. And what we need is just to legalize the contract and get it signed. And now we have the vote to go forward with the contract. So it's just a matter, and maybe Adam knows where we're at with the legal portion of the contract. But I believe it's been sent back and forth a few times, so I can't be very far away from being signed. Once that's signed, they're ready to go.
And I've been told that they're looking at a possible completion by November. It'd be a great moment, won't it, huh?
Yeah, Harlan, I believe I talked to Ron earlier today, and I think he might be on the call. His voice did return. So I don't know if Ron has anything to add. Maybe you want to give him a chance to add whatever.
Indeed. Go ahead, Ron, if you're there and can.
Yes. Hi, this is Ron. I'm doing better. So, yeah, I'm doing better. Yeah, it was, I'm really excited about it. Jake is my contact person and from Carbon 6, and he's been right on time for everything on questions and getting back to me. So I'm looking forward to it. So is he to get started. So like I said, they just need everything signed and we're ready to go. So I feel very good about the whole project and with the company and so that's the good thing.
Yeah, Ron, you told me that you did a fair amount of background research on this company, and you're very, in your opinion, as a general contractor, you believe that this company is really an excellent choice for us.
Yes, I know one of the things that the board had requested to see if we wanted to use one of our stucco people, and their comment was as long as they meet with our quality expertise of what we feel is they got to meet our quality standard is what they said, and also that they have the backup for the insurance. So to me, that as a general contractor, I felt very, very high end good about their comment on that. So yeah.
Thank you.
And like I say, there isn't a lot of carpentry, lumber, finished details. It's really block and structure and stucco. But everything that they replied back to me on was a positive as a GC. So I was overwhelmed with their getting back on their timely manner.
Thanks for everything you've done, Ron. Anybody else have a question or comment on this?
Harlan, I just have one comment, and that is that Ron has done a tremendous amount of work on this. He's worked not only finding the proper contractor, but also his definition of the scope as only a construction company can do. His expertise was well relied on, and he did a great job. So I think Ron deserves a, would you call it a hero award?
A superhero. Well, he was already there, but we can give him superhero number 2 or 3, whatever the case may be.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Then I'd like to call for a vote on this motion. All those in favor say aye. Adam first.
Adam Laschinski, aye.
Brad Hansen, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Arlen Steuben, aye. The motion carries. And the items that we had for discussion have already been included, and I asked owners to send us any of their questions, which we've incorporated in our presentation. We've been on the phone for an hour and a half, which is quite plenty, I think. If anybody has any other questions or comments, please send them by way of email to all of the board. And I think at this point, I'd like to ask for a motion for adjournment.
Motion for adjournment.
Mark Mumley here. I just want to let everybody know I've been down here for about 5 days. And with the rain and everything going on, the courtyard, for those who don't know about it, is looking very good. The work is continuously very strong from the concrete restoration. Joyce and team, as she reported, are doing exceptionally well. And so far, I got a thumbs up for everything here. I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you for your comment, Mark. Great final statement there from you. Appreciate that. So I lost track now. Who made the motion for adjournment?
I did.
Okay, Adam. And then do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Brad.
Hansen.
All those in favor say aye.
Adam Laschinski, aye.
Brad Hansen, aye.
Dana Carson, I.
Steve Dalton, aye.
Arlen Steuben, aye. The motion carries and the meeting has adjourned. Thank you all, everybody. Appreciate your time and input.